Every single video about the Earth battery shows you the theory. They tell you copper and zinc buried in the ground repels insects. They tell you it costs $2. They tell you it runs on nothing but dirt and moisture. And then they show you absolutely nothing. No diagram, no measurements, no clear wiring. Just vague instructions buried under 20 minutes of history and a link to a paid vault at the end. That stops today. This video exists for one reason only: to show you the exact wiring diagram that every other channel refused to draw, where each wire goes, how deep each metal sits, how far apart the stakes stand, what connects to what and why. No vault, no paywall, no subscription required. Just the complete setup, explained so clearly that you could build it in under 30 minutes with $5 of wire from any hardware store. Stay with me until the end, because the final step is the one nobody ever mentions, and it is the reason most homemade Earth batteries fail within the first week. Welcome to the Forbidden Grid. This is the channel where we take the science that billion-dollar industries spent decades burying, and we bring it back into the light. Not with vague claims, not with conspiracy theories, with actual diagrams, actual chemistry, and actual step-by-step instructions you can use today. If this is your first time here, subscribe now and hit the bell. We publish forgotten knowledge every single week. Now let us open this diagram for the very first time. Here's the real problem with every Earth battery video on YouTube right now. They all follow the exact same pattern. They spend 15 minutes telling you that a French physicist discovered something in 1749. They spend 5 more minutes telling you that a Scottish clockmaker built a device in 1841. They build up this incredible story of forgotten science and suppressed knowledge. And then, when it finally comes time to show you how to actually build the thing, they give you 3 sentences. Wrap copper wire around a stake, push it in the ground, make a triangle. That is it. No measurements, no diagram. No explanation of whether the 2 wires touch or stay separate. No answer to whether the setup harms your bees or your earthworms. No clarity on what actually happens if the soil dries out. Hundreds of thousands of people have watched these videos and walked away with zero ability to actually build what was described. The comment sections are full of the same frustrated questions repeated over and over. How deep does each wire go? Do the copper and zinc wires touch each other? What gauge wire works best? How far apart should the 3 stakes be placed? Nobody answered. Until now. Before we get to the diagram, you need to understand what you're actually building and why it works. Because this is not folklore. This is real documented electrochemistry with a paper trail going back nearly 3 centuries. In 1747, a French physicist named Abbé Jean-Antoine Nollet was conducting experiments in Paris inside a stone laboratory. He filled 2 identical vessels with the same soil. He planted equal quantities of mustard seeds in both. He exposed one vessel to a low electrical current for 10 hours each day. The other vessel received nothing but sunlight and water. Within 3 days, the electrified seeds had already sprouted. The control seeds had not cracked open yet. By the end of the first week, the electrified plants were taller with deeper roots. But here's the detail that gets buried in every retelling. The insects in that laboratory avoided the charged vessel completely. Small flies and gnats clustered around the uncharged control pot only. Nollet published his findings in 1749. Then, the scientific establishment moved on and forgot about it entirely. Nearly a century later in Edinburgh, Scotland, in 1841, a clockmaker named Alexander Bain buried a copper plate and a zinc plate 1 meter apart in damp soil and connected them with a single wire. He measured approximately 1 volt of electricity coming from nothing but wet dirt. No acid, no generator, no external power source at all. Just soil moisture acting as a natural electrolyte, allowing ions to travel between the 2 metals. He called it the Earth battery and used it to power a clock continuously for months. 3 years after that, a Scottish landowner named Robert Forrester installed the same system across his barley fields near the town of Elgin. He published his results in the British Cultivator in March of 1845. Pest damage on his fields dropped to almost 0. No aphids, no beetles, no flies at dusk. The Royal Society took notice but did nothing with the information. Then, in the 1920s, a researcher named Justin Christoflo built copper and zinc wire spirals on tall posts across farming fields in France. His oats grew over 7 feet tall with 0 fertilizer. He documented that the electrical field generated by the buried metals appeared to disrupt the behavior of insects attacking his crops. His fields were free of pests without a single chemical application. Then World War I tore through the farmland of northern France. After the war ended, synthetic pesticides arrived with massive corporate backing. DDT, organophosphates, chemicals that could be bottled, branded, and sold every single season. The Earth battery became a footnote. The science did not disappear. It was simply made inconvenient. Now here is the actual chemistry behind what you're building, so you understand exactly why each part of the setup matters. When you place copper and zinc in contact with moist soil, you create what chemists call a galvanic cell. Zinc acts as the anode. meaning it gives up electrons. The reaction looks like this. Zinc loses 2 electrons and becomes zinc ions that move into the surrounding soil. Copper acts as the cathode, meaning it receives those electrons through the wire connecting the two metals. The moist soil between them acts as the electrolyte, the medium through which ions travel to complete the electrical circuit. The potential difference between zinc and copper under standard conditions is approximately 1.1 volts. That is real measurable electricity generated by nothing but two metals and wet dirt. Now here is what is scientifically proven beyond any reasonable doubt. In 2015, researchers at the University of Heidelberg tested copper at very low concentrations against 3 species of mosquito larvae, including Aedes aegypti, which is the species responsible for transmitting dengue fever and Zika virus. At concentrations of less than 1 part per million, copper produced 100% larval mortality within 14 days. To put that in perspective, that concentration is 4 times below the World Health Organization's safe limit for copper in drinking water. You could literally drink the water that kills the mosquito larvae. This is not disputed. It is peer-reviewed science published in multiple countries. Copper also has documented repellent effects on slugs and snails. The Crop Protection Journal recorded 80% barrier efficacy when copper strips were used around garden beds. The electrochemical reaction itself is basic chemistry taught in every secondary school physics course around the world. Where honest debate exists is on the question of whether the atmospheric electromagnetic field generated by buried copper and zinc stakes actually repels flying insects like mosquitoes and flies at a distance of 20 feet. The historical documentation is extensive, but it predates modern controlled scientific trials. Here's the important thing to understand about that gap. You cannot get a research grant to study something that costs $2 and cannot be patented. The absence of funded research is not evidence the effect does not exist. It is evidence that no corporation profits from proving it does. What we know for certain is that the chemistry is real, the larvicidal effect is proven, and the historical field evidence is consistent across multiple countries and multiple centuries. Make of that what you will. Now here is what you came for. The exact wiring diagram that every other video refused to show you. You need 3 materials: 14 gauge bare copper wire, which you will find at any hardware store in the electrical section. 14 gauge galvanized steel wire, which is zinc coated and sold as general purpose wire or garden wire. And 3 wooden stakes or bamboo poles approximately 3 feet long each. Total cost at any hardware store will be between $3 and $5. That is everything. Here's exactly how to build one stake assembly. Take your wooden stake and lay it flat. Cut 60 centimeters of copper wire. Starting from the bottom of the stake, wrap the copper wire in a loose upward spiral going clockwise, if you are in the northern hemisphere, or counterclockwise if you are in the southern hemisphere. Each loop of the spiral should sit roughly 2 centimeters apart. Do not wrap it tight like a spring. Keep it loose so soil can make contact with the full length of wire. The copper wrapping should cover the bottom 40 centimeters of the stake only. This is the section that will go underground. Now cut 60 centimeters of galvanized zinc wire. Wrap it in the exact same spiral pattern directly alongside the copper wire on the same stake. The 2 wires run parallel to each other in the same spiral direction. They should sit close together, but they must not touch each other at any point. This is critical. If the copper and zinc wires touch directly, they short circuit and the galvanic reaction stops. Keep a gap of at least ½ centimeter between the 2 metal spirals at all times. Now, here's the detail no other video tells you. At the top of the copper spiral and the top of the zinc spiral, twist each wire into a small outward loop before you finish wrapping. These loops should sit just above ground level once the stake is planted. They serve as connection points if you ever want to link multiple stakes together with a surface wire in the future. For a basic 3-stake setup, you do not need to connect them. Each stake operates as an independent galvanic cell. The triangle formation multiplies the coverage area. It does not require the stakes to be electrically linked. Push each finished stake into the ground with the bottom 40 centimeters fully buried. The soil around the buried section must be damp. This is not optional. Moisture is the electrolyte that allows ions to travel between the copper and zinc. Without moisture, the reaction cannot occur and the device produces no voltage. If your soil is dry, pour 1 liter of water around the base of each stake before you plant it, and repeat this every 2 to 3 days during dry weather. If rain falls regularly in your location, you will not need to do anything after the initial installation. For your 3-stake triangle formation, place the stakes in a triangle with each stake approximately 4 to 5 meters apart from the others. This gives you overlapping coverage zones across your entire campsite or garden area. Place 1 stake near your sleeping area, 1 near your cooking area, and 1 near the perimeter where insects tend to enter from. Each stake covers approximately 20 square meters of ground level area. 3 stakes in a triangle formation protect your entire site. For standing water near your camp, which is where mosquitoes breed, cut a separate length of bare copper wire and drop it directly into the water. Coil it loosely at the bottom of the container, or puddle. Based on the Heidelberg research, copper ions dissolving into standing water at concentrations as low as 1 part per million produce complete mosquito larval mortality within 14 days. This means no new adult mosquitoes can emerge from water sources near your camp. This part of the setup has the strongest scientific evidence behind it, and it costs almost nothing. Now here are the 3 failure points that ruin most homemade earth batteries and why they happen. Failure point 1. The 2 wires are touching. If copper and zinc make direct contact at any point along the stake, they short circuit. The voltage drops to 0. Check every wrap before you push the stake into the ground and make sure a visible gap exists along the entire spiral. Failure point 2. The soil is too dry. Without moisture, there is no electrolyte and no ion movement. No ion movement means no voltage. In dry conditions, your device is simply 2 pieces of wire in the ground doing nothing. Always water the base when installing and maintain moisture during dry periods. Failure point 3, the wrong wire. Galvanized wire from the garden section of a hardware store works perfectly, but some cheap galvanized wire uses aluminium coating instead of zinc. Aluminium and copper do not produce the same galvanic reaction. Always check the label and confirm the coating is zinc before you buy. Now I want to be completely straight with you about something because this channel is not built on hype. It is built on accuracy. The larvicidal effect of copper in standing water is proven science, peer-reviewed, replicated across multiple countries, not disputed by anyone. The electrochemical reaction between copper and zinc producing voltage in moist soil is basic chemistry taught in every school on the planet. The historical field evidence for insect repellency from buried earth battery setups is extensive and consistent going back to 1749. What has not yet been proven in a modern controlled scientific trial is the specific claim that the electromagnetic field from a buried copper-zinc stake repels flying adult mosquitoes at a radius of 20 feet. That specific mechanism is historically documented, but lacks modern peer-reviewed confirmation. The honest reason for that gap is not that the effect does not exist. It is that no pharmaceutical or chemical corporation will fund research into a $5 device made of wire and dirt that permanently replaces their seasonal spray products. You cannot patent copper. You cannot create a subscription model for zinc. There is simply no profit motive for any corporation to confirm that this works. Build the setup, test it yourself, document your results. The chemistry is real, the history is real. The larvicidal effect is real. The rest you can verify in your own backyard for $5 and 30 minutes of your time. Let us put the cost in perspective one final time. A standard can of DEET insect repellent costs $12 and lasts a few hours of active application. Over a full camping season, that adds up fast. DEET dissolves certain plastics on contact. The side effects of excessive exposure include skin irritation, eye irritation, and in rare cases of overuse, neurological symptoms. You are spraying a chemical developed by the U.S. Army in 1946 for jungle warfare onto your skin to go sit by a lake on a weekend. A citronella candle costs $8, burns for roughly 40 hours total, and only works if you sit directly downwind of it. An essential oil wristband loses its potency within 24 hours. The earth battery setup costs $5 once. It requires no replacement. Rain recharges it naturally. It produces no chemical residue on your skin or in your soil. And the copper element in standing water continues eliminating mosquito larvae for as long as the wire remains in the water. One setup, one payment, one afternoon of work, and your campsite has a passive insect management system running every hour of every day for the entire season. That is the difference between something that was designed to run out and something that was designed to work. In 1749, Nullet watched insects flee from electrified soil in a Paris laboratory. In 1841, Bain powered a clock with nothing but 2 metals and wet dirt. In 1845, Forrester documented pest-free fields across an entire Scottish farm. In 1912, researchers across Europe presented consistent evidence at an international conference. Then a $5 billion industry arrived with a spray can and spent the next 100 years making sure you never heard about any of it. The Earth did not forget. The voltage is still sitting in every patch of damp ground on this planet right now. The copper still reacts. The zinc still gives up its electrons. The soil still conducts. Every campsite you will ever sleep in is sitting directly on top of the only insect management system that never runs out, never needs replacing, and costs nothing after the first $5. 2 metals, wet dirt, 1 wire, no chemicals, no permission needed, no subscription, no vault. That is the forbidden grid. If this video gave you what every other channel refused to, subscribe now and share this with one person who camps, gardens, or farms. Every share keeps this knowledge alive. We publish forgotten science every single week. The grid is still live. We will see you in the next one.